You'll need 150 Sacred Power to do normal damage in Phase 1, and 200 Sacred Power to do normal damage in Phase 2. For every 10 Sacred Power you are below, you will deal 10% less final damage down to a minimum of minus 95% final damage, and for every 10 Sacred above, you will deal 5% more final damage up to a maximum of plus 25% final damage. A full rotation benchmark for SEREN is 160 build per second at 160 Sacred Power. Phase 1. Getting hit by attacks in this boss fills up a gauge. Filling up the gauge will stun you for 8 seconds, the stun prevents all healing and cannot be willed nor dispelled, have normal status resistance helps reduce the stun duration. Priorities in Phase 1. First, burst correctly. Second, stay alive and keep a gauge to the minimum. And third, have burst back up before Phase 2. It's necessary to burst correctly in Phase 1 since many of SEREN's abilities inflict blindness, which reduces your accuracy and as a result a loss in damage. Use an iframe or a will to cleanse blindness to correctly output your damage. Since every attack besides Meteor gives you gauge, it's best to try and dodge everything. Prioritize attacks that immobilize your character. In SEREN, her dash is a super knockback and her weapon aura stuns per second. Both of these attacks will also increase your gauge. Fortunately, dash abilities are considered touch damage, so any untouchable debuff like Fire Poison's Flame Haze, Mercedes Lightning Edge, and Nightlord's Showdown will nullify these attacks. Later on, untouchable is unnecessary, but still valuable, as all of SEREN's touch-based attacks will now be duckable. If you do not have an untouchable debuff, the knockback can be resisted with super stance abilities, but you'll still accumulate gauge when getting hit, so this is not recommended. Otherwise, up jump over SEREN during her dash, or execute a well-timed teleport behind her. There are quite a few ways to dodge weapon aura. The most basic is to duck underneath, but since weapon aura is a slow-moving projectile, you'll likely be hit by pillars. To dodge it quickly, we need to get behind it as soon as possible. As a teleport player, one of the most important tips to learn is the duck teleport, where you can move your character without standing up. This can be done by inputting an attack while ducked. It can be a basic attack, or some abilities can be casted while ducked, and teleporting with a directional key during that duck attack animation. Flash jump classes will combine up jump and flash jump to surpass their weapon aura. Less common options are to up jump and blink, though since blink is a slow hover, you leave yourself vulnerable to pillars, meteors, and lasers. It's good to stand on the edge of one pillar, so you're able to dodge it just by walking. You should be ready to phase at 2650. Phase 2. The gauge is upgraded to have a clock which tracks the day cycle, which represents the 4 phases in this boss: noon, sunset, midnight, and dawn. In Phase 1, there's no limit to how many times you can gauge. In Phase 2, there's a maximum of 35 gauges shared between party members. Each gauge will take time away from midnight and add it to the phase the gauge was used in. If all the gauges are used up, you will be kicked out of the boss. In the transition between each phase, SEREN will spawn 5 pillars of light. One of these pillars will be short, which is the safe spot. Everyone in the party, dead or alive, must be underneath the short pillar to stay alive. If anyone is not in the pillar, a one-hit attack will be inflicted on every party member. This attack is completely nullified by an iframe. Using E-form or consuming Heaven's Door will fill the gauge for the player, but it will not cause a stun. Since gauges are limited, a good goal to aim for is to not gauge more than once a day. Noon. Fight SEREN in the left corner of the map. If possible, you want to stand to the left of her. You do not want her to dash twice to the right, since this reduces the amount of damage you can deal. Duck if you do not see her on the screen to avoid horizontal lasers. Fit your attacks between hers, dodge first, attack a couple times, wait for her next ability. The only attack that doesn't give gauge in this phase are radials, though they do 50% health and inflict blindness. Occasionally a full bomb layer, aside from one safe spot, will spawn as well. This can be avoided by a well-timed up jump and blinking if necessary to avoid the sun rays. If the sun rays do not directly go through the corner of the screen, it's safe to stand there. One of the most important things in bossing is learning what the attacks look like, especially noticing the difference between her stab and laser abilities. SEREN can stab multiple times in a row, but laser has a 12-second cooldown. Sunset. This phase hurts. Everything does a lot of damage and all healing sources are reduced by 80%, so dodge everything. Similar to Phase 1, stand on one edge of where the pillar should be, so you're able to walk to dodge. Sometimes it's unavoidable to get hit by a pillar. There are 90% hits, but you can tank one if you're on full health. They can also spawn in the same location. There are fireballs which apply skill lock. They are projectiles and can be broken by dark side classes, but will still give gauge if they're broken, so you should still avoid them. It also only breaks them for yourself and not for the party. Again, knowing what her attacks look like is very important. Know the difference between 1, 2, and 3 so you know when to duck. 1 and 2 are considered touch abilities and are removed by untouchable, so you're able to continue damaging during 1 and 2. 3, however, is a one-shot regardless of untouchable debuff, and to avoid it, the player should move behind SEREN or duck. You will likely burst in the middle of this phase, where flame curtains are raised and you will wait between them for SEREN to dash inside to bind and burst. Midnight. This is a free phase where your gauge will gradually decrease. No attacks from SEREN in this phase give gauge, however her rush and push should still be avoided to deal maximum damage. SEREN's push will also afflict blindness. There are a couple of anti-cheat measures in this phase. I'm not sure the exact details, but I'll try to name a few. 1. If you bring SEREN below 40% or 10% in this phase, 10 gauges worth of time will be removed from Midnight and added into Sunset, if available. 2. If you deal more than 50 trill, roughly 13 to 15% of SEREN's max HP, you will be instantly kicked out of Midnight. Since Midnight is short, starting roughly about 30 seconds, players will start to run out of iframes for this test, so the party should play the test. Prepare on the right rock. If you do not see a pillar, jump left. If you do have an iframe up, you may get under the short pillar and still iframe the test with your party. Dawn. This is the most important phase to control since your gameplay dictates how much SEREN will heal, indicated by the gray HP bar. SEREN's Grey health will start at 10% of her max HP and increases per attack you receive from any of the abilities in this phase, so dodge as much as you can. The Grey health will also gradually increase regardless of being hit or not. You want to play this phase in the left and right corners of the map, away from the wisps that spawn every 15 seconds in the center, and as well as the deers that will walk up to you and attack. Depending on how much health SEREN has when entering Dawn, she'll spawn between 1 and 3 deers. The deer targets one player at random every 8 seconds and walks towards them. However, you as a party must walk out of the corner to bait the deer into attacking, so it'll stay still. Once it starts its attacking animation, you'll fall back to the corner to dodge, much like dodging a max range Lotus Push. This is the most important part of this phase, to not let the deer walk all the way into the corner and push everyone there. It's a party effort to bait the deers and keep them in the center as much as possible. As for the wisps, every 15 seconds, 2 sets of them will spawn in the center. The first set is 15 seconds after you enter Dawn, the second following shortly after. Any player with high mobility is able to pop them, while being careful to not get pushed around by the crabs that travel across, or get stunned by the swords that from the ceiling. Normally, if a Kana is running, they are usually the designated wisp poppers, since getting hit by them also applies reverse key, which Foxfires can block. Otherwise, anyone with high mobility can pop them if they're comfortable with it. For the first 15 seconds on entry, try to keep the deers as close to the center as possible. Before the wisp spawn, everyone should be in the corners. After the wisp spawn, the wisp popper should go across the map and deactivate them. Then the party should focus on baiting deer aggro for the next 10 seconds. Everyone should go back to the corner to await the next wisp spawn and repeat. Again, if you do not see her, hold down duck, since she may laser and noon on entry. And that's it. SEREN will drop emblems at around an 8% rate with 394% drop rate and frequent Dawn pendants. You have to defeat hard SEREN to get the Solar Crest Nodestone. Thanks for watching.